as I'm sure you do with some of the experiences and things that we have been so blessed to have experienced, and we wouldn't have had it not been for music and aviation. Neither one of us would have had the richness in our lives that we have. Yeah, so this we really didn't talk much about airplanes today and airplane related stuff, but I hope that those people that did stay with us for 39 minutes will just forgive us and indulge us because we don't have a chance oftentimes to talk about this kind of stuff, which I think those that are watching can really tell that these are our passions, and I mean really deep down in your soul passions, and I'll never outgrow it.
Mr. Brown, there have been times over the past year or so that we've been doing this where we've gotten comments from a viewer, eagle-eyed viewer, somebody who's really sharp on the ball, who says, "Hey, you have a bunch of guitars behind you." And of course, you and I both, aviation is a second career. We started out in the music business. And it's true, we do have guitars behind us. And I don't know about you, most of mine have a story of some sort. And we
Oh yeah.
certainly can't go through all of them because this would be a 3-hour episode. But do you have a guitar or two that means something to you? You have a story to tell with it?
Well, I have a few. As you know, my first career was in the music industry. I spent a number of years with Fender guitars up until the early '80s, and then I went to work for a company called ProMark. ProMark manufactures drumsticks, mallets, and percussion accessories. And I spent almost 30 years there as the director of sales and marketing and artist relations. And as a result of that, those two jobs, for a musician. Was a dream come true because I've met most of my musical heroes, Ringo and just on and on and on. And it's been
That's enough. Frankly, you met Ringo. If you've been in a room with Ringo, you win.
multiple times, as a matter of fact. He knows my name. That's the kind of coolest thing when a Beatle knows your name. That is really kind of cool. But that list goes on and on and on. But I started out playing guitar, and really, ironically enough, the Beatles were my inspiration, like they were for thousands of others, you as well. But the inspiration was Ringo. I wanted to be a drummer, but I was really afraid to ask my parents, could I get a drum set, for fear that they would say, no, it's too loud. Now, I know now that they wouldn't have. They made that abundantly clear that that would not have been the case. But I thought, well, maybe I can play guitar as a second choice. And I didn't count on the fact that they were going to make me learn how to play piano first, but they did. But they held true to their bargain, and they said, okay, you can go buy a guitar. My first guitar was a Sears Silvertone archback with F holes in the side. It cost $26.
Wow.
And I had to pay half of it. So I had to earn that money. Now, mind you, this was back in about 1967, so it's been a few years. But the first guitar that I was actually able to buy 100% with my own money, I bought in late 1968, and this is it.
Seriously, you've had this since 1968?
I've had this guitar since 1968. It's a Framus built in Bavaria. It's a round-holed arch-back guitar. It's one of the few guitars that you can buy on the market that actually has a 0 fret. Most guitars start with just a brass fret, and that's the first fret. This actually has a 0 fret, a metal 0 fret. But it's just a lovely guitar. The action is nice. It has a kind of a, not a dark sound, but it's not overly bright, and plays well. And again, I've had it since. Gosh, I'm looking at the serial number. I've had this since 1968, and it's still the guitar that I play every day. It's the only one that I pick up and play every day. So this one has a lot of memories, a lot of date nights. We're playing this guitar, but it has a lot of special memories. So yeah, the Framus.
Well, speaking of special memories, I got one right here This is a Martin 00028. I just think they're the neatest guitars. I mean, it's very plain looking. It's not extravagant. It does have a nice little detail down the center of the back, which I've
Yeah,
always
yeah, yeah.
liked. But I wanted a 00028 for years. I mean, just forever. But I'm too cheap. There was no way I was buying one. So my daughter, my youngest daughter, was working in a music store here in town. Carlton Music, great place. Absolutely love it. And I went to meet her for lunch one day, and I went into the back of the shop, and I met her, and we're heading out the door, and she goes, "Oh, let's go to the acoustic section and see what they've got there." And I should have known something was up because they've got them hanging on hooks, and this one's hanging there, and it's swaying. This one, like it was just hung up, but I'm too stupid to pick up on that.
Uh-huh.
So we go into the acoustic, and she said, "Oh, look, they got a 000 in." So I pull it down, and I start playing my thing, and I don't realize that the entire store now is inside the acoustic room, and they've all got their phones out, and I'm playing, and my daughter's like, "Do you like it?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. This is a nice guitar." She goes, "Good, it's yours." And I kind of screwed up. I'm like, "What?" And she, "Oh yeah, I bought that for you." It just blew me away. Now she was a kid and she couldn't afford a 00028.
Yeah.
So I actually paid it off. But it was the greatest gesture in the world. I love this guitar. It's just fantastic.
Oh, that is such a cool story, and you'll have that for the rest of your life. The story
Oh,
and the guitar.
it's in my will. We know where it's going afterwards.
It's going to your daughter.
Oh yeah, she gets that one back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, she was smart. She was smart.
So
Well,
what else you got back there, big man?
well, this one I play every now and then. This is kind of an unusual guitar. This is a Fender acoustic, one of the few Fender acoustics that were made. This one also dates back to the probably the mid 60s. This was probably 1967, 1968. What makes this unique is the color. This is not stain. This is actual dyed wood from what Fender did was they injected trees with colored dye. They used red, green, and blue, and the sap took the color up into the tree, and then they cut the tree down and made guitars out of it. This is a wildwood guitar, and it's not rare, but it's not very common. And it's got a bolt-on Stratocaster neck, and I don't know if you can see it, but kind of inside the sound hole, I'm not sure you can see it. There's actually a sustain bar. It almost looks like a piece of conduit that goes from here to here,
Oh
and
wow,
it's supposed to make it sustain a little bit better. For me, it's out of tune, and I've got it tuned down one step. It's a little
like
bit.
Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan or the
Well,
Smithereens.
yeah, I tune it down one step and then capo it up too, because I actually kind of like the way it feels when I'm playing a shorter scale. But it's a little with a pick. It's a little bit too bright for my taste, so I don't play it a lot. But this one came on the market, I was able to get it for a song, no pun intended. But I knew what the value of it was, and so I went ahead and bought it with the case. And it's but it stays out, and I play it from time to time, not as much as the Framus, but I play it from time to time. But it's because it's a unique guitar, and if you look on the inside, again, I'm sure you can't see it because it's too dark, but this green, but, but this green that you see on the back actually goes through to the inside of the guitar. It's solid green all the way through. It's not a stain, and
That is so cool.
that makes
Just
it a
amazing.
really unique guitar.
Well, you mentioned value, and that's not why I get them, but I'm a Telecaster guy. I own 4 Telecasters, and this is by far my favorite guitar on the planet forever and ever. It's a 1971 Fender Telecaster. It's got a white metal flake paint scheme to it, kind of like Buck Rogers and the not Buck Rogers, Buck Owens and the Buckaroos had, but theirs was gold, mine's silver.
Yeah.
This did get a lot of work done to it before I owned it. I've owned it since 1980. I did have all the frets replaced this past year because after all that time they had worn down a bit. But it's absolutely a great guitar. And of course, I've never met Ringo, but I did spend an evening with Keith Richards, and I've always loved Telecasters. So I think that's kind of the deal. But there's something about it. When I got this, it was not a valuable guitar. Somebody had worked on it, and there was a glob of glue underneath the neck where it joins to the body back here.
Yeah.
So the action was horrible. And I fixed it up, and it's great. But I suspect this is one of the more valuable guitars I have, because this is the pre-CBS kind of old
Oh
Fenders,
yeah.
and it's all stock now. So I love this thing. It's just great.
Yeah,
And
those
and
pre-CBS guitars are worth some money.
Well, and it means a lot to me because, as you know, I was in a band at one time,
I
and
do.
there may be photographic evidence of that. I can't promise it. But we made an album. We went to New York City. We were going to get rich and famous. That didn't work out. But my partner, Michael, did play this guitar on our album. So I really like that. Just sonically and emotionally, this guitar has been with me for a big, big chunk of my life. So
I hear
I'm
you,
keeping
man.
it.
I hear you, and I wouldn't get rid of it either. So you mentioned a Telecaster. Let me show you something real quick. I got to go get it.
Uh-oh. Oh.
This
This is
is
why
the
we're friends. We both have Telecasters.
but this is the only Telecaster ever made with a wildwood body. It is
Wow.
legitimately a one of a kind. When I
Oh, you
left
mean one? It's not like one series, one
Oh, no,
guitar.
no, no. It is one guitar. This was built in Fender's R&D shop back. I don't even know when it was built. It would have had to been probably in the 60s or very early 70s, as a prototype guitar. So what they did was they took an ash body and they took some of that dyed wood and they laminated it on this ash body front and back. So it's not
Unbelievable.
glue all the way through. This is paint. But if you were to scratch the surface of the guitar, it would be blue until you got down to the white ash. Um,
Man.
and it
That's
is
that's a keepsake. That's some I have this image now that Leo was carrying it through the factory. You knocked him down, wrestled it out of his hands, and ran to the car before he fired you.
well, no, but I'll tell you the story is almost as cool. So anybody that knows about Fender guitars is knows the name Freddie Tavares. And Freddie was the first person that Leo ever hired to help him build guitars when the Telecaster was called the Broadcaster.
That's way
So
back, yeah.
so when I went to work for Fender, Freddie was the one that interviewed me. And I didn't know who Freddie Tavares was. He was just he was 63 years old at the time, a Hawaiian guy, and very friendly. And I walked into the interview and he was playing guitar and one of the strings sounded really dead. And I just mentioned something about, but the guitar sounds good, but those strings sound dead. And he said, well, that was what I was going to ask you. When can you start? And that's the truth. That is absolutely
How
a true
old were
story.
you? How old
I
were you
was,
when that happened?
I was 23.
Wow.
23 years old. Didn't know who Freddie Fender was for years. I didn't realize that one of my dear friends and a man that ended up being a mentor for much of my career in the stringed instrument business was himself a living legend. And in fact, if you want to hear Freddie play, go to Google or YouTube and just do a search for the Looney Tunes cartoon theme. You know, it goes dun, 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 dun,
Yep.
dun, 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 dun. That's Freddie playing that glissando.
No.
He on a pedal steel. That's Freddie going dun,
Oh
dun, 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 dun.
man.
That's
Oh, that
Freddie.
was my childhood. Bugs Bunny. It got me
Well,
right in there.
then you heard Freddie play. Freddie also played guitar before he joined Fender. He played guitar for Harry Owens and the Royal Hawaiians. And Freddie had hands with his fingers were as big as bananas, I swear. And he taught me how to play guitar kind of Merle Travis style.
Oh wow.
And I can just remember so many evenings when I would be at his house or he would be at mine, with the wives, and he'd bring out an acoustic guitar and spend 30 or 45 minutes or an hour singing Hawaiian love songs. And I'm getting a little choked up thinking about it, but he was such a huge part of my life. And just an influence that I can't even articulate. A very special man. So this guitar, he gave this to me,
Wow.
and so this guitar holds a lot of meaning. Now, I didn't realize what this thing is worth until I had it
Oh, a
appraised
one
about
of a
10 years
kind
ago.
Fender.
Yeah.
Woo.
I had it appraised about 10 years ago, and I'm not going to tell you what they appraised it for then, but I can't imagine what it would be worth now. But I'll tell you this, for years, I played this guitar in the bandstand, just in smoky nightclubs all over Texas and Michigan. I played this thing for years and years and years, and I would take it out again if I was playing actively. I would still take it out. It doesn't do any good to sit in the case, and it's classic Telecaster, chicken picking kind of sound. If you put it, especially if you put it down here on the treble pickup, it's just
Oh
a
yeah.
classic, and it's all original except for I did put a brass nut on that, and some of the brass accessories that Fender sold at the time. I put those on there, but it wouldn't take very much to put it back to the old chrome bridge and saddle situation, and replace the the switch plates and things like that. But this is near and dear to my heart. I love this guitar.
Well, I've got one that's not that good, but it means a lot to me. This is a Chet Atkins model Gretsch. And
Oh,
I just love these things. I mean, first of all, Gretsch has always made the coolest colors in the world. These weird greens and oranges and reds.
I love it.
This one's a relatively new one. I got it at Jimmy's Vintage in Auburndale, Florida. And Jimmy's Vintage is a great guitar shop. I mean, people on tour stop in there just to see what he's got because he's got things from the 50s and the 60s and
Yeah.
amps and everything. But the reason I love this, I've got a couple Gretches. First of all, it's got a lot of knobs and switches, so it looks
Oh
really
yeah.
space agey.
And a Bixby vibrato, if I see that
Oh
right.
yeah, oh yeah. So you can do that that
Oh yeah.
wicked game kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I was young and stupid, and I was for a very long time, I bought a 1958 Gretsch, not that dissimilar from this, still had the label inside from the old Brooklyn factory that burned down a million years ago. And nobody liked Gretches. I paid $160 for it. Nobody was interested in Gretches before the Stray Cats came out. And I just love the thing. I thought it was best neck I've ever played. It was fantastic. But Pat, when I got into aviation, I questioned my musical future. I had gotten rid of a lot of stuff. I still had a couple guitars, but I didn't have a big collection. I was moving around. So I gave the Gretsch to my old musical partner, Michael. And a while later, he loaned it to his manager and it disappeared into the wind. And today, you could trade that for a Tesla Model Y. No problem. So
No doubt.
I have
No
this one
doubt.
just because it brings that to mind. And I don't have any hard feelings about the guitar going away, but just having something similar and seriously, the F holes and really, these are built in Korea now. It's a better guitar than the
Yeah.
originals because the top has extra laminate in it. It doesn't feed back as much. The pickups are better, but it has the same look and feel. And I don't know about you. For me, most of music is look and feel. And
Yeah.
that's why I have a bazillion guitars because some days you feel like playing that one, and some days you feel like playing this one, and sometimes that one. So
Yeah. And
that's
I
what I
would
do.
argue that pre-CBS Telecaster that you have, while it has a great deal of value intrinsically and otherwise, it's probably not as good a guitar as the Telecasters that are being made today.
Oh, no doubt.
Um,
No doubt.
in fact, there was a lot of flack that CBS got, as you know, in the it would be probably in the early 70s. CBS bought Fender,
Hmm.
and it was one of it was there was Fender and Rogers drums, Rhodes electric pianos, electro harmonics, or no, electro voice, Gemeinhardt flutes, Squire strings, which is the company that made the guitar strings for Fender. All of those were brought together under Fender Musical Instruments, or CBS Musical Instruments, and early on, the quality suffered, and the
Oh yeah.
company would acknowledge that. But Freddie told me, towards the end of my tenure at Fender, that the company was actually building guitars that were far better than anything they ever built when Leo owned the company. And that's nothing against Leo. It's just that, when you get NC routers and computer control lathes and things like that, you can make the guitars with much more precision. And
Yep.
by the time I left Fender, that's what they pretty much had gone over to, is NC routers and automatic lathes and things like that. They were cutting and shaping the radius on the neck and things like that. So
And
as
some of
good
that
as
was even like the old ones had 4 bolts on the back plate holding the neck, and they went to 3 bolts because they could save some money. And I take nothing away from them,
yeah,
but that's the kind of thing they do again. It's 4 bolts now.
yeah,
It's just, I love this one. And I always love the stringing through the body. I just
yeah.
think that's the coolest thing going. But you're
So
right. The one you go pick up today is perfectly good. And frankly, I'll probably get shot by purists for this. If you're thinking about, I want to play guitar and I want an electric guitar, but I don't want to spend $2,000, you can buy a perfectly good Squire Telly or Strat
yeah,
for a couple $100. And
yeah.
unless you're going out on the road where it's going to get beat up, you will never know the difference. They're great guitars.
So let me tell you a quick story about Stratocasters while we're talking about that. I don't own a Strat, but this story was told to me by the person that was there in the room. So Leo had an idea for guitars and for a guitar, and so he built a prototype. And he called a friend of his that lived in California at the time, a guy named Bill Carson. Now, Bill Carson is the guy that told me this story over lunch one day. So Freddie, Leo gives Bill this prototype Strat to take out and play on the bandstand. Bill was playing with some well-known bands in California back in the day, and he played it a while, and he brought it back to Leo, and he said that basically told Leo that the guitar plays great, but it felt unbalanced to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to describe to Leo, what the issues were. So Leo takes it to the bandsaw and he starts hogging out some wood, what turned out to be the upper bout of the guitar.
Yep. There's upper back.
So that upper part, the horn that sticks way out,
Mm-hmm.
was not originally that at all. It was much thicker, bigger, and Leo basically just hogged it out with a router or a bandsaw, and so gives it back to Bill to take back out and play. And by this time, Bill was playing some session work, so he was sitting down to play the guitar. And Leo, the balance is better, he said, but it cuts into my ribs. And so you know what the back of the Strat looks like.
Yep.
So
It's
Leo takes a
beveled.
bandsaw and bevels a bunch of the back of the guitar out so it didn't cut into his ribs. Gave it back to him. Played it. It's much better. It's balanced better. Doesn't cut into his ribs. He said, but the vibrato doesn't stay in tune. So Leo invents the knife edge vibrato. So Bill,
Amazing.
so Bill Carson, look, you can look Bill Carson up. He's in the books. Look up Bill Carson. And late in Bill's later years, he was Fender's artist relations rep and sales rep in Nashville, and that's actually where I met him. I was spending a bunch of time in Nashville at the time, and that's where I actually met him and became acquainted with him and a whole bunch of guys in the scene at that time in Nashville. So one of my favorite parts of that part of my musical career. Here's
I
the
love
last.
that.
Here's the last one. This is
And it
this is
should be red. That
yeah.
that particular model should be red.
It's a Gibson ES335, not to be confused with the 330 that BB King plays, but this is a Gibson ES335, 2 humbucking pickups. It's the model that has the trapeze style tailpiece, not the style tailpiece, but the trapeze style. I bought this used in 19. I'm sorry, think a second here. 1974 for $200 with the case,
Oh man,
and
there's an
it
extra
is.
zero on there now.
Oh, easily. Oh, easily. The new ones go for $3,000 or $4,000, if
Yeah.
not more. But it's a cherry red, semi-solid body. You can tell the F holes here, semi-solid body. It's in pretty much primo shape. It's almost all original. I didn't like the gold colored plastic knobs, so I put black ones on there. I don't know where the gold ones are. I probably should try to find some and put it back that way. And also, if I remember right, uh, I think I put new machine heads on it too, because the old ones I think were kind of that
Yep.
plastic looking stuff. I'm not sure if I did that or not. But once again, I played this thing on the bandstand for years I played this guitar, and it really, to me, it's almost remarkable that it remains in as good a condition as it is. There's a few not scratches so much, but kind of indentations, belt buckle indentations back here, but it didn't damage the finish. But this is just one of those guitars that plays like butter.
Oh,
And
and
and I
Alex Leifson from Rush played those. I mean, 335s are just,
yeah,
they're the go-to. Eric Clapton played one for quite a while. They're terrific.
it has a nice sound. You can get some bite when you put it on the treble pickup, and when you put it on the bridge pickup, it has a nice mellow, kind of a jazzy kind of a sound, and
Hmm.
kind of in the middle when you put them both on there, and of course you can adjust the volume of either one. But I played this for again for years and years on the bandstand, and by the way, I will also tell you I'm not a lead guitar player. I can't make my fingers work properly to do that. So the best I can do is hack out some rhythm stuff and have a good time. But it was good enough to be able to make some money playing music. But this was probably the first really, I mean, really superb guitar that I could afford to go buy. The Framus is the first one, and this would be kind of this would kind of be right up there on that same list. But I got it for a song. I mean, really, I've got it for a steal. But I
Well,
love this guitar.
I can beat getting it for a song right here. This is
Yeah,
long, long ago. There was a man in New York City, because New York City used to have factories right in Manhattan. There's a
yeah,
man named D'Angelico who made beautiful archtop guitars, very highly sought after. And seriously, if you can get an original D'Angelico, it's worth
right,
a fortune.
right.
This is a replica. There is a company, D'Angelico. I think Bob Welch from the Grateful Dead now is using their stuff. It's got a very distinctive headstock with this
Yes,
little
it does.
piece in it, but it's an absolutely beautiful archtop guitar. And it's more of a jazz guitar. It's got one pickup and it's really warm because it's way up by the neck. It's got let's see, really unique tuning pegs on it,
Oh
and
yeah.
very Art Deco. It's just a neat guitar. It's really for jazz players, but I like it a lot. Here's the weird part. I buy more guitars than the average person, and that may never end. And sometimes my wife is a little touchy about that. So I went to D'Angelico was holding a show and tell at a music store in Central Florida. And I went because I was curious. I've always known about D'Angelico guitars. I actually went to their showroom once in New York, and I didn't know it wasn't open to the public. It's like on the third floor of this building, and somebody was going in the elevator, which is accessible from the street. I went in. They didn't throw me out, but they did tell me I wasn't supposed to be there. But I go to this show and tell thing, and there's a guy from D'Angelico, and they have all these models, and they're nice guitars. They really are. I like them a lot. And they were raffling one off, and I don't win things, but I won this guitar. And somebody my wife works with was there and said, "Your husband's coming home with a guitar." And I was so concerned she was going to read me the riot act. I walked in the door with this in its case going, "This was given to me. I didn't pay anything for it, but I still have it. I still like it. It's an awesome guitar." Now I got to ask this. Do you still play out? Do you still go to a club or a civic thing every once in a while?
Every now and then, I've got a good friend that still plays almost every week here in Houston, and every now and then I'll go out. And normally, if I do that, if I sit in on something, normally I'll play bass. I've got a precision bass and a jazz bass in the closet. I didn't bring those things out because we were talking about guitars, not basses.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got two basses in and typically if I'm going to play out, I'll play those. But usually, if I'm going to do that, it's usually a sit-in, so I'm playing the bass that somebody else has brought. But over the years, I've been really, really fortunate because I've been able to play on stage with Michael Cardelloni. Michael is the current drummer for Leonard Skinner and was the drummer for Damn Yankees. You may
Oh
remember
yeah.
both
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
names. Ron Ganaway, who was the most recent drummer that Charlie Daniels had before he passed away. And before that, he played drums for Steve Warren or some other people. And I've had a chance to play on stage with him. I've had a chance to play on stage with Liberty DeVito, who was played on every
Billy
Billy Joel
Joel.
record there was except for Piano Man. And on that same night that I was playing with Liberty, Jeff Carlisi was on stage with us. Jeff was playing that blue guitar. Jeff wrote this little hit record by 38 Special called "Hold On Loosely,"
Yep.
and so I had a chance to play with Liberty and Jeff. Um, it's been a remarkable experience, and I've told you before, Jamie. I've been fortunate. I've never had to work a day in my life. When I was working for Fender and with ProMark, those are jobs that I would have done for free. And the same thing, aviation. I mean, I've had a chance to meet Chuck Yeager and Bob Hoover, and I know two guys that have walked on the moon, that I can call by name. Well, one of them's dead now, but that I could call by name. Fred Hayes from Apollo 13, Lovell. I mean, and a whole bunch of shuttle astronauts, because they're all here in Houston, and all of that is because of because of the music thing, or because of the aviation thing. I have had a life that is blessed beyond words, as you have, just with all the wonderful experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I'm the same way. My entire career is an accident. I played guitar because I saw the Beatles, I saw the Stones. I want to be that, and I was till I was 29. I loved it. I had started flying, and well, if you got to start another career, why not fly? That's good,
Might as
and
well.
it has just been fantastic. There's a parallel between the two, which I don't think people really believe me, but
Very much
first
so.
time you pick up a guitar, sit down at the piano, grab a saxophone, you don't know which way is up and you just suck. Same thing the first time in an airplane. You're overwhelmed. There's so many gauges and switches and things to do, and everything's moving. But if you keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, eventually you get better. As long as you recognize, I don't know what I need to know, but you know something. Can you teach me that?
Yes.
You'll do fine. And musicians do it. Hey, Pat, teach me that lick you played at the and
Yeah.
in the airplane. Hey, how do you configure on landing? Where do you bring in the flaps and stuff? It's great, but
You're
it is
right.
rarefied air. Whether it's on the entertainment side or the aviation side, like you, I've got to meet my idols. I've got to meet heroes. I've got to meet people who are going to be in history books for a long time to come.
Oh yeah.
And I have loved this every minute of it. It's been fantastic. I do think it's funny though, meeting you and finding out, oh, we have all these music business connections. And when I was a young flight instructor, I was really surprised how many of my students played a musical instrument. And we should give a plug to the Flying Musicians Association because there is one.
Absolutely.
So many pilots are
Yeah.
also musicians. It's a natural swap over. So if you don't play yet, learn. And if you don't fly yet, start.
So what I found is that pilots, by and large, generally, pilots are an incredibly supportive group of people. There's a faction that can get snarky, but by and large, pilots are an incredibly supportive group of people, especially when they're talking to someone less experienced than they are. And what I found, particularly in the percussion end of the music business, is very much the same way. Drummers and percussionists are incredibly supportive of one another and will sit down and gladly show you that lick that they played on whatever that record might be, and happily have you steal it and use it, yourself in a different way. So I know we're running a little overtime here, but I want to share one thing. Roy Haynes passed away a couple of days ago, and Roy Haynes was one of the early adopters of jazz drumming, bebop in particular. And one of his contemporaries was a gentleman named Elvin Jones. And that's Elvin and me with my boss at ProMark, Maury Brockstein. This was taken a number of years ago, but Elvin was one of the architects of the bebop sound with Thelonious Monk, and he played with Charlie Parker and all of those guys. And I got to know Elvin pretty well because he used our drumsticks, and so I have a gazillion Elvin stories. I'm not going to really tell you any of them other than the one he and his wife Keiko, a lovely Japanese lady, invited me to his birthday party, 75th birthday party in New York City years ago. And I enthusiastically accepted. It was the Blue Note, And I called up our mutual friend Dennis Dyken for the Smithereens, and I said, Dennis,
Yep.
you want to go
Right
with me to
across the
the
street from Folk City. I remember
yeah,
the Blue Note.
exactly. So I called Dennis, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to go. I'm a big Elvin fan, never met him." So I picked him up at his house in Jersey, and we drove into the city. And of course, he knows the city like the back of his hand. So we got round down to the Blue Note and got parked and got in there. And we were sat at a table with Tracy Morgan and Garrett Morris from Saturday Night Live, which was surreal. And I was expecting to see a whole bunch of people that I knew there, but really, there was I think Craigie Zildjian was there from the Zildjian Company, and Joey Testa was there from Yamaha, who was their artist relations guy at the time, and me from ProMark, representing ProMark. And I had brought this framed picture of an advertisement that we had done in magazines with Elvin, and all the people at ProMark signed it, "Happy Birthday, Elvin, with love," and all that kind of stuff. And I had it framed, and I was going to give it to him. Well, waiting for an opportunity to give it to him. But in the meantime, the band, and by the way, Elvin's band was playing at the Blue Note that night, and Bill Cosby was the MC. This is before Bill Cosby is the Bill Cosby we know now.
Hmm.
Very funny man, by the way, live. So it comes time to take a break, and Michael Shreve from Santana gets up, and he's playing the drums while Elvin's cutting his birthday cake. In the meantime, Joey Testa is bringing in armloads of bags. And I thought, man, oh man, Yamaha's giving him all this stuff, and all I've got is this little framed picture. I'm so embarrassed. But without knowing it, um, Elvin says in the microphone, he said, I asked Yamaha to make some drums for some friends of mine that have been particularly important in my career. And so, and Yamaha made some 10-inch piccolo snare drums, 10 of them, that's all. And Elvin starts calling names, and he called up Craigie Zildjian, and he called up some of the guys from Hudson Music, and he called up his record company people, and he called my name.
That is
And
awesome.
and this is what I got. One of 10 piccolo snare drums, and it's hard to see because the ink has faded a little bit, but it says
Oh, yeah.
to brother Pat, Elvin Jones 99 of '02. And it has a plate here
That is a beautiful thing.
that
Yep. That's
commemorates it. So there's some dust on it, and I really need to put some dust on it. And I keep this batter head covered so that it doesn't get any more faded. But
that's fantastic.
but Elvin was one of those people that was literally just bigger than life, and to have a chance to have known him, um, it just I still pinch myself, as I'm sure you do, with some of the experiences and things that we have been so blessed to have experienced, and we wouldn't have had it not been for music and aviation. Neither one of
Well,
us would have had the richness in our lives
oh
that we
God,
have.
yeah. And that's if anybody is still watching this far into it, I think this is the longest video we've ever made. But the thing that really does stick with me, and the thing I would want to pass on to people, is the reason you and I have found ourselves in a room with Yeager or Hoover or Ringo or Keith Richard or whoever. It's because we were participants, and you realize I belong here.
Yeah,
And that's the weirdest thing in the world when, I'm 26, 27 years old in a bar in New York City, and the door opens and in walks Iggy Pop and Steve Jordan and Keith Richards. And it's just, and, we're all hanging out. Oh, you're a musician too. Okay. Yeah. What's your band doing?
yeah,
It doesn't matter if you're in music or aviation. If you're a participant, I don't care if you're the line guy talking to an astronaut, you're both involved in aviation, you have something in common. And if the only time you've gotten your logbook was an intro flight in a J3 Cub, that person wants to talk to you. Oh, what was it like? So just be a part of things. Just, the
yeah,
people will tell you, yeah, it's too steep a climb, it's probably not going to work. Well, maybe it won't. And neither you or I became rich or famous in the music business, Pat, but neither one of us would give up 1 minute of it. And
We
neither
do
one of us has been to the moon, but my aviation career has been absolutely unbelievably great. So
Yeah.
I hope everybody takes away, just try it, do it, whatever it is, throw yourself into it and become as big a deal as you can. It's worth it.
Yeah, so you know this we really didn't talk much about airplanes today and airplane related stuff, but I hope that those people that did stay with us for 39 minutes will just forgive us and indulge us because we don't have a chance oftentimes to talk about this kind of stuff, which I think you can those that are watching can really tell that these are our passions, and I mean really deep down in your soul passions, and I'll never outgrow it. Freddie used to tell me because he was 63 when I first met him, and he was, I think, probably in his 80s when he passed away. But I remember early on, he used to tell me that he ate sunflower seeds every day because they were good and healthy for you, and it would keep him young. And he says, "I may get older," he said, "but I'll never grow up."
Darn right.
And this is the first time I'd ever heard that. I've heard it many times since. But he said, I may get old, but I'll never grow up. And I have lived my entire life by that mantra, thanks to a lovely, lovely man named Freddie Tavares. And anybody who wants to Google search him, just he was one of a kind.
That's as good a note to end on as any as I can think of. Folks, thanks for sticking with us on this. I hope you get as much joy out of your life doing whatever it is you do as Pat and I have. Please do me a favor and click like on this. Leave us a comment below. Do you play a musical instrument? Do you fly? What's your passion and where do you think it's going to take you? And of course, subscribe to the channel because Pat and I really thrive on that egocentric boost we get when you subscribe. So Pat, thanks a lot. I appreciate you sharing the stories. This is a huge part of your life. It's a huge part of mine. And it's just entertaining as can be to me that we both worked for years very, very passionately in music and then met in aviation and carried on with that same vigor. So
Yeah.
thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure. Adios, my friend.